Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link together with a thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Eli, Brian's Logic, Refracted Curvature, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Yo, yo, yo.
Hey, good morning.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, welcome one and all. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container for the gas we all breathe to press upon?
That's copywritten.
We're asking for any evidence of outer space, a sky vacuum. Okay, at this point I'm going to point out that this is a public participation show. There's a link in the info box, as I say all the time. If there's regulars watching, they'll just go in one area and out the other because it's said so many times. You can join. We are challenging the notion that the sky is a vacuum known as outer space with travel taking place in it. We are travelling through a sky vacuum when travelling to Mars and the Moon, according to the current heliocentric religious worldview, that the sky is a vacuum called outer space. That is categorically, without question, not real. There is no travel to the Moon or Mars, because if the sky was a vacuum called outer space, then the gas we breathe would fill that space.
They bring up the gradient. They bring up that there's less air when you go up to Mount Everest. They bring up
let's
all
deal
of
with
that
that
stuff, but they
Okay,
don't.
let's
They
deal with
don't
that.
deal with it.
So there's a... What type of gradient, Neil? A gas pressure gradient. So a delta of the question we ask daily. How can you have a gas pressure gradient without a container for the gas pressure? Moving it on one step doesn't change the antecedent consequent relationship that is gas pressure pressing on something. You still need containment to first develop gas pressure to then develop a delta of gas pressure, which is a gas pressure gradient. So you still require a container. Inquiring about why we have gradients? Well, that would be because gas which is created at ground level dissipates. It's called entropy. Diffusion? It's diffusing into the area of volume it has to dissipate into. That dissipation is described in the second law of thermodynamics, an entropy increase. Now, because there is a higher concentration of the gas when it is released from the ground or the tree's leaves or whatever it is that's creating the gas, as that goes up, just repeat that, as the gas created at ground level goes up, it expands and the gaps between it increase, i.e. it dissipates in line with entropy law. So the gas has made its way up from ground level in line with entropic law, therefore must be contained and has nothing to do with outer space being a sky vacuum. We'd all be dead because the gas we breathe would continue past Everest into the availability of volume it had to fill, and we wouldn't have any gas to breathe. Gas fills space.
But then they ask, why isn't all the pressure equal on Earth? That's what I was told.
Because we first of all have containment to form a gas pressure, and from that gas pressure we have gas pressure cycles. And those dynamic systems give us differentials and weather. But those dynamic systems are only achievable if you first have the antecedent of containment for gas to be at pressure. Not a sky vacuum which the gas would move into, a container for the gas to press upon, in line with natural law. So, with all of that being said, that was a preamble, by the way. We've got some fascinating imagery that goes alongside some fascinating stories from the heliocentric worldview that the sky is a vacuum and we're travelling to some of these distant lights in time and can see back into the future when we grab ourselves a telescope. And this is causing quite some stir amongst us, flat Earth and globe Earth alike, as we are bombarded with images from the James Webb Telescope, are we not? Hope that was a good enough segue to continue the conversation we had in the pre-show.
Well, they have images they claim to be from this telescope that's claimed to be in a place that can't exist. But they have copyright on these images. Why would you have copyright on those images? Who else could say that they took the picture? Who else could do that? Maybe China.
Yeah.
Anyone that can work with Photoshop.
Yeah.
Say again.
Like, who else could claim that it's their picture? Could I claim it's my picture that I took it?
I didn't know what Arwin said.
I said anyone that can work with Photoshop.
No, right. Anyone that can create an image can copyright their image. Yeah, right on. Go on, Brian.
If their claimed outer space is real, then why would they need to copyright those images? How could I take the photo that they have under those conditions?
I like to comment.
I'm back.
Go on then. Who's back?
All right, so the copyright is not so much for what we're talking about. The copyright is if someone takes that image that doesn't exist because there is no outer space, but this James Webb or whatever consortium that says it's theirs, just in case someone wants to put it on a T-shirt and sell the T-shirt. Oh, we copyrighted. You have to ask permission. You got to pay us a royalty. That's the purpose of the copyright, the way I see it.
Yeah, I understand those elements. I understand that someone could decide to do that. But it would be very obvious in the court of law that that photograph is from NASA. That's my point. My point being is that who else could take that photograph? How could I put that photograph on a T-shirt and not end up in court with NASA and it be totally proven that it's not my photograph? How could it be my photograph if it's from the place they claim it's from? How could I ever go there and take that photograph?
Well, like
That's
with any
my point.
photograph, hold on, just for clarity. If we sidestep the fact that they would argue, well, they've put a lot of work into it, it's an infrared image, and we've put a lot of colour correction into it to put it into the visible spectrum, in quotes, well, that would class as work on an image, even though the argument is about whether or not it's a photograph in a narrative of a sky vacuum. But whether or not you can take any image the same as somebody else's is not a possibility. You can't do it. I can take any photograph ever, and you can never, ever, ever replicate that.
Yeah, but I think I'm missing it. You can take a photograph of the Empire State Building, and I can take a photograph of the Empire State Building. We can both go there and take that photograph.
However,
Hold on, let Brian
Who
make
says
his
it's
point.
a photograph?
Hold on. Brian's in the middle of a point.
Hang on.
I don't know if it's hot everywhere, if everyone's just a bit agitated. Hopefully, it's very hot here too. I can empathise, but let's just let everybody get to the end of their points. Thank you. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Nathan. My point being is that I can't go to this place they're claiming they took this photograph from. So there's no way for me to claim that I took the photograph or that I have ownership of the photograph. How could I?
Gotcha.
But if you can take a photograph of the Empire State Building and I can claim it's mine if you don't copyright it.
Okay, let me just make the comparison. So the claim is, here's our image of Narnia. We all know where Narnia is, right? And Brian's saying, Well, they're saying here's a picture of Narnia that's real. Obviously, we can all go to Narnia. It's not just in the book and on your laptop and on your video screens. It's real. Okay, everyone all clear? Narnia's real. Good. Right, Brian's saying, well, I can't get a photograph of Narnia.
What
Well,
does you being
it's an
capable of taking
artistic
a photograph
impression,
of
isn't
a
it?
place have to do with whether you can copyright that photograph?
Good point. I agree. It's non sequitur in that regard. Like I pointed out, with that if you say it's had lots of colour correction done to it, and any photograph that is taken can't be replicated 100% perfectly in any way, shape, or form, that's not possible, then how can you link being able to copyright any photograph, because all are unique, to space being fake because of the copywritten nature of some particular images? So that was, again, discussed in the pre-show, but there's my preamble for that discussion to continue if it needs to.
It does need to. Can I ask a question? This is getting into
You already
the
are. Go ahead.
weeds. Thank you. We can't even turn that thing around and say we're taking a photograph of Earth because they admit that it's CGI and it's a composite, and the guy admits from NASA because we have to. So if Earth is not a photograph, then how in the world are they saying this thing is a photograph?
That's a very good point. It's something that hasn't been laboured yet, and I'm so grateful that you brought it up 10th. That's right. So let's just bring that back down to Earth in a very literal way. Pictures of Earth from space, that's the sky vacuum I comprehensively took apart earlier as an opener, are also all fake without exception. You can't take pictures of Earth from Narnia. That isn't possible. All of them are fake. There are no pictures of Earth from outer space, because outer space is fake. It's a second law of thermodynamics violation. Good point. When we talk about the web pictures, what about pictures of the very nature of the existence that we are stood upon? Wouldn't that be much more interesting to see? Because we can all look up at the sky, and we don't need it colouring in, thank you. But we can't go up to the claim to be sky vacuum and turn our cameras back around, now can we?
I think the point I made was kind of lost a little bit. I can't go to where they claim that photograph is taken from because it's not a photograph that's copyrighted. It's an image. If it was a photograph, there would be no need copyright it. If it was
Still
a
copyright
photograph,
We're going around in circles here. Shout out to Tony Whitcomb. He says, Simon Dan will never let go of his model ball. Thank you for the super chat, Tony. So yeah, without getting into the wrangle dangle of...
home
Go on, Cuddles.
is the whole fakery thing. You can copyright poetry, right? Something that you manufacture. You can make a game character. The best thing is like programming and 3D animation. You can copyright something that you manufacture in a game or in an image or in a GIF. There's companies that have copyrights on all kinds of different things that they've created where you have text that's moving, flames, words, glowing. All these things are copyrighted. Their methodology, all of the stuff from NASA is copywritten. And that's a fabulous point that Brian makes is if I put it on a shirt, I would have a field day with them in court because I have a stack of questions. So I would do it just to start a fight.
Well, you're missing the layers that go with this. If a professional photographer takes an image and he calls it his print or puts it to a print or does whatever he does with it and says, I took this image, it was on this date at this time with this camera, with these focal, parameters, and he now wants to sell that. Well, if someone else takes it and copies it, he's got a case against them. But he took it of a natural scene on Earth. So there's different layers. You got to look at this.
Right, but we're not trying to be pedantic with this. The whole coding, programming, image. If I make art in Paint right now, I can make a drawing, copyright it, and then put it up online where nobody can actually copy it. You can't even screenshot it. It's crazy what I can do these days.
The reason this fascinates me is because of a comment that was made by Dilly Gill in one of his videos several years ago now. Now, if you're not familiar with Dilly Gill, he takes apart NASA footage in a very, very comprehensive manner. So he does long, comprehensive videos pulling apart NASA footage. And he made a comment that NASA are on the cutting edge of cinematography. Now, if you know anything about cinematography, there's a lot of employment to be had, like NASA's got, in cinematography. And they've got the best technology that there is. So that's what they've got, and that's what they copyright. Their work. Right? That's what they're copywriting. Their work. Because that's what they're doing. Work on Narnia. I mean space. Outer space. The fake sky vacuum that doesn't exist, you can't travel to, and isn't going to give you images of Earth from it.
I think I know what you're going to say to my next comment in advance, but I'm going to say it anyway. If they're on the cutting edge of cinematography, as Dilly Gill says, how is it that movies depict space better than the ISS videos that come
They
from
don't.
that?
Okay, I'll give you the good answer that Dilly Gill gave. What NASA are very good at also is not overplaying their hand. So playing their cards pretty close to their chest. So whereas in Star Wars you've got lightsaber battles and X-Wings flying around in the sky vacuum and it's all very nice and pretty, NASA are a lot more low-key because it's far, far harder to get caught out if you're showing somebody eating peas and carrots from a tube of stuff, rather than having them do anything elaborate. So most of the stuff that you see from NASA, in spite of being, as I correctly stated from Dilly Gill, is on the cutting edge of cinematography, they'll do things with footage to make it seem like it's done amateur. Or not amateur, but just that's the best you can get out of space. You know, quality goes down, it degrades heavily when you go to space. It's just how it is. For example, they do a live feed. This is all exposed by Dilly Gill. And they've got a live audience for a live link to the ISS. And the way that this is set up is you've got two broadcasters talking to camera, and behind them, so they're looking away from it, is a, let's call it a couple of feet, maybe 3 feet screen that's set 20 feet from a live audience. Now, what they get on that picture in the live feed while they're doing a very obviously scripted back and forth between the studio and the ISS is an angle that is slightly lower from a second camera and reduced in quality down to what would be 240p in YouTube terms. Now, that's what they get when they're doing the quote-unquote live feed to a live audience that are looking at a television screen in a studio with the hosts who are closest to the TV screen looking away from it. Now, once that's commenced and they've done the full live link-up in front of a live audience, they then, sometime later, produce different footage that's of a slightly varied angle. It's been taken from a different camera and would have incorporated the wires that the people were all hanging on, that the lower angle that the live audience presented to weren't seeing, so they don't see the ceiling. Now, when they put it through post-production, they get rid of the ceiling, they get rid of any remnants of wires, they brush up the quality, make it high def, and then release that to the public as though it was the footage that was watched on the TV screen by the live audience. Now, for me to give that 2-minute, 3-minute summary, Dilly Gill spent hours and hours and hours and hours taking footage from the cameras that filmed the TV for the live audience to watch the live feed and comparing them and showing how they're from a different angle and how the post-production version definitely would have incorporated the ceiling but had post-production work to remove it. Now, that's the kind of level that Dilly Gill's going into the expose of how they use trick camera footage and trick camera work to basically pull off a magic trick, produce flying men for a live audience. that are actually on high wire. Now that's what they've done. That's why they are on the cutting edge of cinematography. They're convincing people you can fly. You're telling me they're not on the cutting edge? They've actually got the entirety of the Western world believing you can fly. Hello? Yeah, they're definitely on the cutting edge of cinematography. That goes without saying. Just because they play their card fairly close to the chest and what they're doing in the footage is boring, doesn't mean that how they're pulling off what you're seeing isn't absolutely admirable, noteworthy. It gives me goosebumps. You know, I worked in theatre, that's what I was trained in. So this sort of magic trick is like next level. Like I say, you've convinced the Western world that men can fly. That's mad. You've got to be at the top of your game to do that.
Well,
And
I got a problem with all of that, and I'll tell you right now what it is. If you want to convince the Western world that it's actually happening, you want to have two different feeds, one post-production, one pre-production, and the pre-production shows the wires. The post-production doesn't show the wires unless you can. I mean, look, when you watch movies from Hollywood, you don't see any of these wires, and they don't have a post.
100% post-production. So do those
Let me
movies
finish.
get do those movies
I'm not
ever?
finished. I'm not finished.
Yeah, but you've just
I'm not finished.
compared it
I'm
to
not finished.
post-production only.
I'm not finished. If you buy a DVD and you get a second DVD that shows you more things about how the movie was made, you can see how Sandra Bullock was on wires in the movie Gravity. You can see what they did. But in the movie, you never see that. But NASA wants to show you both. One is live and one is post.
No, that's wrong. That's wrong. It's not a fair comparison. What you compared to in the DVD footage of Sandra Bullock flying on high wire to show you how it's done, NASA have convinced you that the behind-the-scenes footage is what you're being presented live, and that Sandra Bullock is actually flying in the behind-the-scenes footage. That's what they've convinced the world of. Now, that's far more difficult than just showing her on wires and showing it's not real. Then you know it's not real. NASA are really flying because they're in orbit around a sphere Earth from a sky vacuum. That's what they've convinced the world of. You're obviously not a Dilly Gill fan.
No, I see a breakdown in the logic here. I know what you're saying, and I know how the world has bought into this lie. That I'm not disagreeing with you or Dilly Gill. The problem I'm having is from the same source you get two different footages. The problem is from the same source you're getting two different footages when it should be one live footage being the real deal. And that's why we're able to point those things out to people. And that's why people see NASA as lying.
Right, but they're not presenting that to the world. That's me presenting it based on a lot of research done by Dilly Gill. What the public actually perceive is an audience watching a live feed of men flying, followed by them being able to closely scrutinise post-production footage of a high enough standard to be comparable to the footage you get from movies. So they think it's one and the same thing. Now, what I was going to say further to that was that that's what Dilly Gill labelled, although he's stopped doing this now, maybe to reach a wider audience, crapo-vision. So they get the low-res, low-def, so that if there is any twinkles off the little very thin wires that they use when they do this, so they're not doing anything too elaborate, they're just dangling there, well, so they won't get caught on the low-def crapo-vision. But that trick is the same trick they've been using for years. And let me explain why. It's been working for years. Psychopaths love to recycle magic tricks that just work. Well, how does that sound? I'm talking about filming footage, just in this instance, coincidentally live, yeah? Live footage, live link-up, right? That bit's a little bit more advanced. But when you describe how we all got duped into believing men landed on the moon, what were they doing? The press were filming from some distance of a second-generation projected image. That's what we got. So the footage you see that's claimed to be moon landing footage is second gen from video cameras in a NASA room filming a TV, not even a TV screen, filming a projection screen that's running from a video camera filming a TV screen so that they can film the image that's come from the TV screen through a camera, through a wire, onto a projector, onto a wall so they can film it with their cameras. It's the same exact trick they've been doing since the 60s.
Except when I show the one with the wire, the people who were tricked say, oh my gosh, they're lying.
not the majority of the Western world, and the
I
majority of the
haven't
Western
shown
world
it to the majority of
don't
the
believe
Western
Darth
world.
Vader or Superman are real, but they do believe men are above
haven't-
them flying in a sky vacuum.
Come on, Nathan. I haven't shown it to the majority of the Western world, but everyone I've shown it to can't deny it.
Anybody's wondering why this combativeness is there, I suspect it's because I'm being, or speaking fondly. Hold on. Speaking fondly or giving admiration to NASA's work. That's what I'm basically doing. I'm praising it, and people on my panel don't like it.
That's not my
That's
motive
correct.
at all.
Yeah,
That's not-
well, here's the thing, Tim. We're not going to show it to the majority of the world when they have the parameters they have in place for YouTube, Facebook, and everywhere the Western world, etc., takes in information. If we can't dish out to the places the information that people are going the majority of the time, then we won't reach the majority.
That's
So
a whole.
that's the hill we have to get over. I don't know how we're going to do
I'm
that.
not, Eli, that's a whole different perspective, paradigm, view. That's not even what I'm talking
Well,
about.
didn't you
that's
say
fair.
that they didn't? Didn't you say the majority haven't seen it yet? How are you gonna? Because they're not gonna show it to
I'm
the
not
rest of the
saying-
world.
Did I say I was going to go and divest of everything I
No,
got?
you said they haven't seen it yet.
Okay, I just want to say to the audience, it's very hot around the world at the moment. It's hot. It's hot.
It's not
Well,
hot.
you're trying to finish telling me what you didn't say, which I didn't say you did. You said the rest of the world hasn't seen it yet, and
Back off-
I'm
back
saying
off your
and
mic.
they're not gonna, and here's why.
Back off
Fine,
your mic a little
that's a
bit,
different
Eli.
argument than the
everyone,
one I'm
everyone,
having.
everyone. I just want to keep the show nice, please. It's been such a good show up until now. Eli, please back off your mic a little bit.
But that's a whole different argument Eli's putting forth than the one I'm having. I don't even disagree with Eli and what he's saying there.
But it's not an argument; it's a conversation. I'm just responding
I
to
say-
exactly
when I-
what you said.
When I say argument, don't think I'm like it means an argument, like I'm arguing with you. It's a position I'm putting out forward to discuss. The argument I'm putting out is that every time I've shown those images, they say, "Oh my gosh, they are faking it. They're on wires." Now, do I have the ability to show it to everyone in the world? I doubt it. But if I could, I would. But everyone I have shown it to sees with their own eyes the wires and says they're faking it. That's what I'm saying. Very tight argument right there. Not anything else that you want to make it to be or not.
Right. Well, good on you, me, and everyone else who's doing the good work so far. I mean, you show one or two people a magic trick and you expect it to spread like wildfire, like a pandemic, right? So because it isn't, means that there's a system in place for that not to happen,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is very unfortunate for us.
Yes, let me explain
Totally.
that system. Yes, the system is called the suspension of disbelief. So it's the difference between you going and watching Sandra Bullock, right, and suspending disbelief that she is actually flying in the movie. Please mute. So when you do that, and that suspension of disbelief, one that you have knowingly accepted, so you're willingly suspending your disbelief that she's flying in the movie. Now, when that suspension of disbelief is taken away from you, i.e. by seeing behind the scenes footage, you're all okay with it. That's fine. Mentally, you can cope with it because you knew you were suspending disbelief about her flying in the movie. Now, compare that to the example I gave earlier when I said, no, in the behind the scenes footage that NASA present, the men are still flying. Because that's how it just is. Even behind the scenes, they still fly in the boring footage when they're just eating their dinner. Yeah? That's the magic trick. That's the main magic trick. Like in The Prestige, when the guy carrying the big, massive, heavy bowl with fish in it to just produce it from behind a sheet, seemingly from nowhere. Well, the magic trick is him walking out the theatre looking frail. That's the magic trick, so that no matter from whatever angle, you're always under the impression that he's a frail old man. He couldn't possibly carry an enormous 20 kilos of water with a goldfish in it between his legs as he hobbles onto stage. But that's precisely what he's doing. So that's their magic trick. And my point is that when that suspension of disbelief, it's the same suspension of disbelief, the only difference is you're an unwitting participant in that suspension of disbelief. So when that suspension of disbelief is shattered, you rebel against it because you weren't a willing participant. It was just real. You didn't realise you were suspending disbelief, and that makes you feel stupid. So people rebel against it, and they don't like it, and they want to tell you how you're wrong about how you're pointing out that it's just a suspension of disbelief. No, it's actually real. No, to take it to extremes with my example slightly flawed, the person who actually believed that she was flying in the movie, in the same way they would react badly if you said, no, she's not really flying. If you explain it to a 4-year-old, they might get angry. No, Peter Pan or Robin Williams doesn't really fly. He's on wires. No, Peter Pan can fly. Let me show you behind the scenes footage. 4-year-old has a tantrum because they weren't a willing participant in the suspension of disbelief. They didn't know what suspension of disbelief was when they watched Peter Pan fly around. So they get angry when you point out that he can't really fly. It's all an illusion. There's a behind the scenes. And an adult that didn't know the same way that space was fake, and there's a behind the scenes where they're not flying, but what you thought was the behind the scenes is still part of the movie. They get angry just like the 4-year-old does. That's how it maintains its structure.
I have no argument with the context and the perspective in which you just described that, but that's not what I was talking about. You see the different layers I'm talking about. If I'm having a conversation with that guy or that gal you were just talking about, I would stop talking because they're not open for the discussion. I'm talking about people who say, 10th man, why do you think they're faking space? Then I enter those discussions because I have an open ear and open eyes, possibly. And then I show the proof, and then they say, oh my gosh, you're right. So you got to put it in the right context.
So that's an even smaller audience. Those who have already sensed that something is afoot and are looking for others with more knowledge. That's a very small audience.
You got that for sure. That is a small audience, but that's not my problem. My job is to show what I know.
Let me expand on that. That's excellent, Eli. Yeah, that's comparison to the kids that walk out of the movie theatre after seeing Hook, which is probably all of our generation, coincidentally, maybe a little bit younger. But, we can all relate. We all know what Hook is, right? Peter Pan with Robin Williams. Well, you're saying there's a very small subset of society that would reach that criteria. Yeah, likewise, there's going to be a very small subset of 4- and 5-year-olds that walk out of the movie theatre and are open to the idea because they've questioned the narrative of whether or not Peter Pan is actually a suspension of disbelief when they watch the movie. Some of the 3- and 4- and 5-year-olds might have been rubbing their chin going, I wonder if this is actually really happening. Now, yeah, there's going to be a very small subset of 5-year-olds that have questioned that. Like there's a very small set of adults that have questioned space in its reality. Good comparison, Eli. I love it. I hope we're all enjoying the space talk, by the way. This isn't something we often talk about on Flat Earth Debate. We just cover it in a housekeeping question and boom, space is done with, right? So we don't normally talk about it, but when there's something to react to, i.e. James Webb Telescope or whatever it's called.
Thanks to my post.
I think the reason that we find ourselves in opposition, or at least I feel that way, I feel a little resistance by your point, is because I think overall I'm pissed off that we're focused on such a small group that's going to find us anyway. Like, everybody knows that. Everybody knows I'm always talking about how do we reach greater audiences? How do we get more people ready? How do we undo the preempting that the massive media has done for the last 4 years that we're not really privy to because we're not inside of the illusion of the magic trick anymore. We have no idea how it's affecting people at the moment.
You're insanely
loud.
When we first heard it...
Okay. You're insanely loud, though. I just want to tell Eli, because otherwise... Oh, God. Eli, you're really, really loud. I can't control your levels in G+, so
is this better?
I just have to appeal to you to please speak further away from your mic. I can't turn you down in G+. I just have to trust that you will mute vigilantly, like you're not doing now, and not talk 2 centimeters from your mic, because I can hear wind noise, and it's actually your voice creating turbulence over the mic. You're so close to it, and I can't do anything about it. It's driving me nuts. But what your points are great, you know. So that's why I want to make sure you can be heard nicely, and people aren't, you know, crunching their toes while they're listening to you. Make you good points.
Great points, Eli, but you're so damn noisy.
Sorry. Is this better?
Yes, like normal. Yes, thank you. So yeah, we don't typically talk about space, but it's just, you know, it's fascinating when the normies are in it. What I did want to expand on from you, Eli, is you said that they're going to find us anyway. No, I don't agree. We're shoved in a little pond, far away from everybody. Anybody that's on the route to the pond, because they happen to have a map, might find us if they've got a map. And that map is normally someone clicking the share button. My segue into the 120 plus people that are watching, and thank you very much for joining us. Good to have you all. Please share the show. That's why there's 120 people watching. Only reason there's 120 people watching, Eli, is because there's dedicated people in my live stream that share this show all the time. Not because I'm getting any support whatsoever from the platform. I'm just not. Quite the contrary, they're doing horrible things to me at the moment, especially on my second channel, but that's a different point. But I just don't agree with you. To summarise what I'm disagreeing with, you said they're going to find their way anyway. No, I don't think they will.
Not here. The person who's looking to uncover a contradiction is going to find that. Like no matter what's happening with the paradigm, just like we did.
They are going to find it because there's backhanded comments on that whole video of this James Webb telescope. There's more flat earthers out there than you think.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that. I do agree with that. But they don't know how to be honest about their questioning. They don't even know where to begin. They might not even be. Sorry, they might not even be at the questioning space stage. They might just be questioning, or is it flat? And even still, that's not as meaningful as a question as you might think in the beginning.
Eli, let me run something by you. A farmer puts a seed in the ground. He doesn't have a harvest 24 hours later. Takes time. A child is offered broccoli by the parents, hates it, doesn't want it. But as a teenager, maybe college student, I love this broccoli. I don't know why I never liked it before, especially with butter. It is everyone's time at different stages in their life where the seed becomes a plant that produces fruit, or they like something that they previously hated. When we talk about flat Earth and we talk about how they have put us in this corner and it's an archaic subject and act of Congress, okay, we got a lot going against us, but at the same time, we're growing like crazy. I know people I'm talking to and the people they want me to talk to. I'm building something here that's going to reach 10,000 people with just 10.
Okay, I'm going to have to interrupt with a serious question from the super chat. So Godzilla says, if space is fake, how is it that the James Webb telescope picked up a picture of Sandra Bullock orbiting the Death Star? Explain that. Thanks for the super chat.
Well, it's still fake because it's all bullocks.
That's an even better one. Ted, you're on fire.
You know the way I think it was Neil saying that there's more flat earthers than you think. Yeah, that's true. But if you remember the movie The Beach, where there was a lot of tourists in Thailand, but very, very, very few of them made it to the beach, this little island or whatever, this little place. Very few of them ever made it there. There was a map, but very few people had the map. It was kept secret. You know, its location was suppressed, blah, blah, blah. Well, we are the beach in that way, right?
Well, we gotta share the show.
Lots of tourists come to Thailand, but very few of them found the beach. So we're kind of like that in a way, if you want to use that analogy.
So the way the beach ends, so it's paradise. That's what Brian's great movie, Leonardo DiCaprio, and there's a point of no return when they're following the map. They're pretty certain they've got their way there, and they come to a point where they just can't go any further because there's a massive waterfall blocking their way, and the Leonardo DiCaprio guy says, well, this is obviously the point that keeps it secret. So he just jumps off. In other words, he takes the leap of faith, right, metaphorically in the movie. It's good what plot laid out. The problem with the story is that, not the problem with the story, as the story goes, the problem they find in the story is that more and more people do actually figure out where the beach is. And then they end up with a community that needs a bit more support than it can actually sustain. And at one point in the movie, someone ends up with a broken leg, and there's no way of sorting this problem out. So what they do is chuck him in a tent somewhere away, so they can carry on their beach lifestyle. You know, they're partying it up. They're dudes, but they don't really need the issue of a guy who's got a leg broken that they can't sort out. So they just leave him to rot. Right now, that gets progressively worse and worse without spoiling the movie completely. But let's hope we're not like
that. Did you know that movie was copyrighted? So you can be in court.
Anyway,
that was a beach for the guy with a broken leg.
It sure was.
Yeah.
Let's not move too far away from space, though. Brian, I've segued away from his point just to make a point about the story that was interesting, and juxtapose that with him saying, well, we're a bit like that because we're isolated, and you might find your way roughly to us, but we're in a pond, so you're not going to see us, you're going to look past us. That's just how it is in YouTube terms. Unless you really are following the map, then you've still got to take a leap of faith. Click the link that someone shared with you that's got the words flat and earth in it. And then you might find your way to this secret island that we call Flat Earth Debate. I think that was more Brian's comparison about the island. Is that what it's called, the island?
The beach.
The beach, yes.
The beach.
The island is the other one.
My point about it.
Go ahead.
That's what a different actor is. I don't even know what that movie is about. So, now my point about it is all these tourists were in Thailand, and they're all falling for the same nonsense. They were all doing the same thing and falling for the same nonsense. Only a very small amount of them actually found the actual real Thailand, the real beauty or the real paradise. Most of them were having parties on the beach on ecstasy and whatever other nonsense they're doing. Whatever other nonsense they were at, drinking and falling over in groups and whatever rubbish they were doing, all that ridiculous nonsense that they were falling for. Well, that is flat Earth. Most flat Earthers never make it to here because they end up running into the feast of nonsense or something that's a derivative of it and being sent off in different directions. And even if they're not flat earthers, if they're people who just questioning things, they're the same thing. So my point being, only a very few small amount of people actually make it here.
Well,
because
maybe
here is like jumping off that waterfall is go on.
I was going to say, maybe here is the tent with the guy with the broken leg, where we see that there's serious stuff that needs to be done. And we're all very, very super serious when you arrive in the tent. But out on the beach at the Feast of Nonsense, there's parties going on, right? The flat earthers are all very carefree. You know, I'm not going to say hippies, but, you know, there is a lot of crazy hippies in flat earth that don't really know why they believe it, but they just know that it's a cool conspiratorial subject that's, you know, yeah, man, earth's flat. And they'll regurgitate. Let's not pour scorn on any particular feat. Go on, Arwin.
I'm just gonna say, and there's no trees, and there's the mud flood, everything but flat Earth.
Yeah, you've got it. Whatever nonsense that comes alongside it, as well as flat Earth itself. But I think Brian's more specifically talking about. I'm gonna have to give an example, aren't I? Stuff like ether and heights to celestial bodies and various other aspects of models and things in flat Earth that are just there at the Feast of Nonsense. Basically, that's the beach party. You know, that's the bit to get you into it, so that you can be, torn a strip off later by somebody who's got a general idea of the rhetoric or a good anti-flat Earth vibe, and they'll rip you a new one in front of an audience, and hopefully that'll suffice. But you've got to be kept actually being that party guy, thinking you're having fun on flat Earth at the Feast of Nonsense, right, Brian?
Talking about Bob.
Yeah,
just
Nathan, we are. Go on, Neil.
Go on, Armin.
Go ahead, go.
What? That's Neil. That's not me. But I just wanted to say that Akumu Virus is saying in the chat that he can calculate anything. So I asked him twice to, show the formula to calculate the elevation angle from a curved baseline. And he says he can't, but every time I ask it, he deviates off to why is that necessary? Why should I answer that question? Why do you want to know? But he doesn't actually show the calculation.
Well, the elevation angle
Virus.
measurement.
Maybe you want to explain it in the Discord.
To have the curved baseline, you'd have to have first taken an elevation angle measurement from a flat baseline, to then have the curved baseline to necessitate taking an elevation angle measurement from it. But elevation angle measurements have got nothing to do with a curved surface. You can derive a curved surface from their measurement from a flat plane. That's why it doesn't want to answer, because it leads to the inevitable fact that the measurements were taken from a flat plane.
Hey guys, just going back to the NASA images. I don't know if it's just me, but I just sometimes glance at them, and you always seem to end up finding like weird pictures in there. I think like faces and like ghouls. And I've already noticed that on this latest James Webb one. There's one of them just it appears like a face with a really weird face, and then further down to the left, it only looks like a crucifix to me. If you just have a look,
that's most likely intentional. Because these things are going through Photoshop, there's a good chance that the people who are doing it are highly educated in aspects of subliminal messagery. So if you want to check out this, you're not wrong, and I'm going to lend credence to it, not by going into detail, but by suggesting a YouTuber that I was into about 10 years ago, who's still around. I do occasionally pop in just to make sure this channel's still there for when I recommend it, like in these moments. So the videographer's called Nathan Bell, but the channel's called Reality in Truth. And if you type into YouTube a search for The Great Subliminal Message Deception, or the YouTube channel Reality in Truth, all one word, then you will find your way to part 1 and part 2 of, I think it's total 3 hours, maybe it's 4, I can't remember, maybe it's 2, I can't remember either. But a fairly chunky description of how layered images are created in terms of subliminal messaging and what their purpose is in terms of what emotions they're trying to emote, if that's the right word. Is that the right word? Emote? I don't think it is. Evoke. There you go. I got there in the end. So that all gets broken down really comprehensively by Nathan Bell in his YouTube channel, Reality in Truth, and specifically in the documentary, The Great Subliminal Message Deception. So you'll be able to find him with that information, with hopefully a few little looks. But the bit that, if you don't want to sit through a 3-hour documentary, he does a shorter video, which title eludes me, but I can't remember the name of the title. But either way, there's maybe a 15-minute video where he talks about the Subliminal Message Handbook, and he goes through in about a 15-minute video, I think it might even be taken or edited down from that documentary, about a specific handbook that's used in advertising. It's an older one. It's from maybe the 70s, but it just breaks it down in a sort of a more commercial manner. This is how you do subliminal messages. Here's an example of a subliminal message in an advert. Here's how it was created. Here's what it was trying to evoke, etc., etc., etc. So it's just a handbook of how to do this. Now, there's a good chance that people who are working at a high level in NASA creating images are going to know this stuff because they're going to be trained through it, university or college or whatever you call it, to do it. It's not that hidden, is what I'm trying to drive at in terms of this, educational material to train people on how to do it. And subliminal messages are absolutely everywhere in absolutely anything that's had money spent on it. So yeah, and Nathan Bell exposes that quite well. So check out
Can
Reality
I pull it
in
back
Truth.
to space? That's something
You
we
can.
highlighted.
There's
The
lots
subliminal
of
phallus messaging in all of the Elon Musk stuff, and I forgot his name.
Bezos.
Bezos,
Dick Feather.
Yeah.
Yeah, the logo for what's the other one? The competitor to SpaceX, Bezos. Blue Origin. Is
Blue
that the name of the
Origin,
rocket? What's his company called?
Amazon.
The one with the feather logo.
Blue. Oh, it's Blue Origin. Oh,
It's okay if you don't know. Anyway, the logo, when you see the Blue Origin launches, which is the company name, which we've all forgotten, it's just a dick in the shape of a feather. It's pretending to be a feather, but it isn't. It's just a penis.
Penis feather.
Anyway, subliminal
I
messages.
just wanted.
Yes.
On screen. I'll find it.
We'll find the logo as Eli's going through
Well, if
the
you
next
look-
point.
I mean,
Hopefully a
first
bit
of all,
further
look
away
at
from his
it.
mic.
Look at the phallus rocket for a start. Even with its.
Go on, Eli.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that this is like, you know, not really related to what you guys are saying, which is there's like fake imagery and subliminals put in this fake imagery. But breaking down the wall of lies, screen user over at 24/7, he used to take these pictures of the sky with his telescope, and there was a lot of weird shapes in there. Sometimes what looked like ghoulish faces, things that we would call alien like, not alien, like angel like or angel-esque. Like, just looking at the sky, there's a lot of weird looking shapes up there, man.
I've actually got a short video on this, Adam. I've just stuck it on. Is it playing?
The word you're looking for, Elijah, is angelic.
Thank you.
For some reason, when you play a shorts video on YouTube as a tab, it doesn't work the way you'd expect it to. Oh, here we go. It's running. Hopefully, it'll have this feather logo that we're talking about on this shorts video that I've made called Dicks in Space #shorts.
Should have named it Venus.
How do you prove something's not pareidolia?
We missed that, John. How do you prove something's not?
Pareidolia?
Did anybody catch that? I still didn't find the feather logo, by the way.
Say pareidolia?
Pareidolia, okay. Simulacra and pareidolia. Fine, let's go through that. So if you look at a cloud and you see a bunny or the Rorschach test, same thing. That's simulacra. Your brain automatically identifies threats. So if you're looking out into the distance, you're looking for eyes watching you to hunt you. Instinctively, you're just looking for threats, and you will naturally find shapes of faces when looking, just through natural instinct. You're just gonna find them. And Adam's finally come through with a good
Instinctual anticipation.
Yeah, but the process of actually describing something as an item like a bunny rabbit cloud is pareidolia, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, but the similarity that you would have with one thing versus another, that's simulacra.
So maybe the thing, a phallus imagery.
No.
I think that that effect.
No, well, I'll put it on screen for the audience there, John, and they can make their own decision about that.
Sounds like these effects are tied in with physicality assumption bias mechanisms in the mind. To make something of something you see, right? To personify it, to turn it into a relevant thing for your instinct.
Yeah, well, that's what the subliminal messages in general play on. There's two different types of subliminal, if you want to evoke the maximum effectiveness. And something I've mentioned many times before, one is called the death cell, and the other is called the sex cell. And you're working on the, primordial, if I don't get tarnished with tar and feathers for saying it, part of your brain that basically says, don't die and reproduce. So your brain's generally saying, is that threat food or a mate. When you're looking at stuff and assessing it in the most base way, is that bus going to kill me, hump me, or can I eat it? It's probably going to kill me, so I better get out of the way. Well, you do that without thinking about it. There's no processing involved, really. You just instinctually know that the bus is going to flatten you, so you get out of the way. You instinctively look at the blonde girl with the big boobs and the nice legs and go, yes, please, I'd like to produce babies with that girl. That's what your brain just says without you even doing anything. Or, I'd like to, not with the girl. So you see a cake, let's give the example first, and you go, I'd like to eat that. You don't think, oh, I will now consider whether or not I would like to eat that. Do you know what I mean? So
Well, it's
when
better
I'm getting
than
to a point,
wanting to make love to the cake.
Arwin, I'm trying to get to a bloody point here. Yeah, so when you appeal to those base instincts, you will appeal to your natural tendency to want to hump things in the sex cell. Now, this is very easy to illustrate, the death cell less so, in terms of putting a naked lady or a girl in a bikini sat on top of a Ford Taurus. And that makes you want to buy it, right? That's how simple it is. That's the sex cell. Yeah, you can expand that out however you like. The death cell is very different. The death cell works on the same instincts, but also, for some reason, that advertisers have figured out, also makes you want to buy things when you trigger that part of your instinctual brain about things. So you look at an advert for whiskey, and if it's got skulls and ghouls, finally getting to the actual point that was originally made from Discord, why would they be there? Well, because that triggers a part of your brain without you realising why. An instinct that triggers the fight or flight in your brain because of the death element that you're seeing without realising it. But all you're looking at is an advert for some whiskey. But suddenly your mentality has changed. Your chemicals in the brain have changed. The way you're viewing it has changed. Not because you've assessed it and gone, oh, that ice cube is actually in the shape of a death skull. You don't assess it at a surface level. It's subliminal. So that answers the question that was originally raised from Discord. Why would you have these ghoul faces if you don't discount what John said about pareidolia and simulacra in these images? And I would suggest that they are absolutely intentional and trying to trigger a part of your brain to make you fear things. Part of the main aspect of control in any system is fear. And that's where the death cell comes in very, very useful when it's peddling a religion. That's why it's there. Sorry, Arwin, to cut you off. John, I'm sure you've got something to say, and the original person who I've forgotten who brought this up from Discord. Excellent point. Nathan Bell, Reality and Truth, subscribe to this.
Sorry, sorry, I'll be quick. It was me, Nathan, but yeah, but also it just goes to show as well that these are actually images and they've been tampered with and they're not real because you can clearly see these faces and little things that are in there. So it's just more weight towards it being totally fake.
Fine, wait. Thanks. I'm only joking. Go ahead, Arwin.
Yeah, it's not working. I just wanted to make a joke, but if I have to wait 5 minutes to get it in, then nobody will get it.
Well, that's fine because this has been content-wise one of the best live shows for ages. Absolutely no debate in it. Nobody's challenged us from Discord. Nobody's joined us to tell us how real space is. Well, that's telling as opposed to oh no, there's been no debate. Yeah, but there's been some excellent dissemination of really good information in this particular live show and in the pre-show. I even said at the beginning, just before we went live, this is one of the best pre-shows we've had in ages. And I'd go as far as to say that this is the same, it's followed through for whatever reason, even though it's really hot everywhere, into the live show. So this has been a really excellent show. So I'm glad you didn't get a chance to make a joke, Arwin, because the content's been such a high standard and your jokes tend to fall a bit short, gotta be honest.
Out of this world.
Wow.
That was a good joke.
No.
It's all about the timing, Arwin.
Survive and reproduce.
No, that wasn't funny because that's just not funny anymore.
Hilarious. With that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned as there'll be an epic, I know for certain, after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A massive, huge thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat and thanks button, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!